Shalom Yesharala. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Racha Kudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to those La'akim that's preached the word in all truth and sincerity, along to Israelite foreigner brothers that like the heathens. But the line of false side goes back to the nation of Israel, which nation of Israel are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans through the prophecies and curses of Deuteronomy 28 chapter and throughout the Bible. So this is our brother Yakal on my another video, and today's video will be entitled "Give the Lord the Best You've Got." I'm just gonna go on some precepts, and Lord willing, you brothers and you sisters out there be edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. Because knowing that teaching the gospel will be the last thing we will do before we enter into the kingdom of heaven. So knowing that this is our last time to preach the gospel, we should be in the mindset of giving the best we got unto Yahweh Shema Shai. Because we don't want to treat the Lord like the elders and Akim always say from time to time. You don't want to treat the Lord like a side woman. You don't want to just we give the Lord the best we got. We make the Lord our first priority. You see, and that leads me to the first precept in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 9 and verse 10. It says, "Whatsoever thy hands find to do." Now the word hand, when you define the word, it's from the Hebrew word yad, which means we go right here. It says strength or power figuratively. So the word hand means strength. It says, "Whatsoever thy hand or strength findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest." That's right. So in other words, do the best we can while we're living. Because if we're in the grave, if we go back, if our body decomposes back in the grave, in the earth, and our spirit goes back to the Heavenly Father Yahweh who gave it, then we won't be able to, preach the gospel. So while we're living, we have to do the best we can and utilize what the Lord has given us according to the portion of our spirit to preach His gospel, wholeheartedly, man, sincere, and uprightness. You see, because just like in the law, statute, commandments, it speaks about the first fruits, and the Lord wanted the best of the best amongst your first fruits, and when you go to read Exodus chapter 22 and verse 29, it says, "Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits and of thy liquors. The firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me." So the Lord is expecting the best of the best, because the first fruits, I'm going to keep going. Verse 30 says, "Likewise shalt thou do with thy oxen and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam. On the 8th day thou shalt give it to me." So right. So by this law, it shows that the Lord wants the best of everything you got. So how much more preaching the gospel, excelling in our lot, knowing our lot as well, identifying it, and also because, being in this truth, it comes with many gifts. Many different administrations. Because the body, which represents the church, the believers in Yahweh Shai, the elect. Have brothers have different gifts, spiritual gifts that the Lord has given them, and we have to max out on those gifts to the best of our ability until our Lord Yahweh Shai make a second return. You see? So with this law right here, once again, it shows that the Lord is looking for the best of the best. So how much more spiritually in teaching his word, you see? And when you go to Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 31, I'm sorry, Sirach 7 and 31 in Apocrypha. Get to it. This is Sirach 7 and verse 31. It says, fear the Lord, Yahweh Shemo Shai. Well, let's see. I'll start at verse 29. It says, fear Yahweh Shemo Shai with all thy soul and reverence his priests. And we know, which we all, kings and priests in this faith. We ultimately it's going to be applied in the kingdom. But at first, on this side, the priest first and foremost applies to our apostles, elders of great millstone, because those are the men that the Lord has set up to give us his knowledge. So the scriptures speak about giving double honors to those that labor over you, which is our apostles, elders of great millstone. Give double honors to those that rule over you, roughly paraphrasing that scripture. It says, verse 30, love him that made thee with all thy strength, and forsake not his ministers. See? So it says, love him, which is talking about loving Yahweh Shemo Shai. That I made that, because he made us with all his, what's like it. Love him that made thee with all thy strength. So we have to love Yahweh Shemo Shai with all our strength, man, and forsake not his ministers. Our people are not supposed to forsake the men that the Lord has set up, which is our apostles as a great millstone, to us younger brothers on down. It says, fear the Lord and honor the priest and give him his portion, as it is commanded thee, the first fruits and the trespass offering and a gift of the shoulders and the sacrifice of sanctification and the first fruits of the holy things. Now, we understand we don't, we don't give the priests, in these times, the shoulders of animals and stuff, because Yahweh Shai is the ultimate sacrifice, but talking about the first fruits, we in these modern day times, it's just talking about, giving the best you have by teaching his gospel, first and foremost. But also, we pay our tithes to the apostle of great millstone, when we have it. We reverence them. We give them great honor and respect. You see, and we don't got no farmland in these days. No brothers don't got farms and stuff. For the some brothers may have farms, but but for the overwhelming majority, we don't have that. So we're not able to keep the first fruits, that law. So we do it spiritually by giving the best we got spiritually to Yahweh Shemo Shai and preaching his word. So let's go to Sirach 35 and 8. Because we don't want to be like Cain, the wicked one, that just, he ended up giving produce to the Lord. When Abel which represents the righteous. He gave the best of all that he got. And Lord will not get to go into that account. But this is Sirach 35 in verse 8. It says, give the Lord his honor with a good eye, and diminish not the first fruits of thy hands. See? So now the first fruits, of course, that's one of our high holy days. You'll give the best of your produce to the Lord, from your farm and stuff, the produce from your farm, but now, it's spiritual. The first fruits is giving the best you can, giving the Lord all you have, being in his gospel, teaching the gospel, and it says, get the Lord his honor with a good eye. So it has to be with a good eye, man. It has to be with good intentions. We have to serve the Lord with a good heart. It can't be deceitful. The Lord talked about hirelings being in the faith. We don't want to be no hireling. We want to be cheerful and sincere in serving the Lord, man. Because serving the Lord is not grievous. And like I was saying earlier, I wanted to go into that quick account with Cain and Abel. This is Genesis 4 and verse 1. It says, and Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived, and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord Yahweh. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep. So Abel was represents the righteous. He was a keeper of the sheep. He was a shepherd. It says, but Cain was a tiller of the ground, meaning Cain, he was a farmer. And once again, Cain represents the wicked. It says, in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord Yahweh. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord Yahweh had respect unto Abel and to his offering. And why did the Lord have respect unto Abel and to his offering, to his sacrifice? Because it was what the Lord wanted, and it shows that the laws were oral back then, because Abel, he brought the firstling of his flock, whether it was sheep, goat, or ox, whatever type of clean animals they were, and he brought the fat thereof. That's what the Lord wanted, and that's why the Lord had respect unto Abel's offering. But to Cain brought the fruit of the ground, vegetables and fruits and stuff. The Lord don't want that, Cain, he basically, not basically, but he did a half-ass sacrifice. The Lord didn't want that. Wasn't looking for that, man. From Cain. It says, so yeah, that's the point I want to get. Just that quick, those quick few precepts just goes into, how, we want to give the Lord the best of the best, and just like Abel did, gave the best of the Lord amongst the firstling of his flock. We have to do that spiritually and preaching his gospel and praying to him, sacrificing our time and our efforts to please the Lord, studying, doing research, being a good brother with the Akim, all those things the Lord delights in. And if you have bitterness in your heart, man, you won't excel in this truth, because the Lord doesn't like a bitter Israelite in the faith that's just don't want to be productive, so yeah, I just want to make a quick lesson on that. Going back to the title of the lesson, give the Lord the best you've got. Lord willing, I was edified. And until next time, Shalom.